Hello, welcome to the session of building a bot with an intent. I think I'm audible to everyone. So my topic is about building a bot from scratch. Okay, so my name is Abhishek and I am a Microsoft MVP and Intel software innovator. I work for Insane Testing Solution as a solution architect, and my main focus is to innovate on the product called Taxi Connect. So these are my social media accounts, abhi2434, and my Facebook and my LinkedIn accounts. I am also an author of two books on .NET. So both of them are on .NET for expert development. So if you want, you can go through them. Now let's coming back to the topic that we will discuss today. So the agenda is we will be building a bot from scratch using the common APIs that are available for bot frameworks. I'll mainly focus on the Microsoft bot framework because I have mainly worked on it. But if you want to use any other bot frameworks like one of Facebook, one of Google, etc., you can go through them in a similar manner. So first I'll discuss what is a bot, then I'll talk about some of the traditional bot which we are building in history, from long back, because bots are not new. There are a lot of bots available in the market from the very beginning of the industry. But recently there are some major changes on the industry on this segment. I'll then go through the bot framework, the features that a bot framework provides. I'll then create a simple code using C#. I'll create a bot in front of you, and you can actually communicate with a bot using natural languages. And then I'll create an introduction of cognitive services. Cognitive services are new in the industry. There are a lot of big giants are working on these services where you can actually identify some of the traits of a sentence or a speech that a person says to a bot, and you can make use of these cognitive services in your application as well as your bot. So I'll mainly focus on the NLP service, which is natural language processing, where you are intended to actually decode the language which the user is speaking on, and you can create some intent out of it. Next, we will talk about some dialogues and forms, which are specifically some features which are available with these bot services, where you can provide a guided sequence of action which a user can perform, and you can have a better guided services for your offering. And later on we will discuss about publishing a bot. So publishing a bot is nothing like just publishing a website, and I'll discuss about some use cases of voice calling bots as well. So let's coming to an overview. So you all know about AI. So from John McCarthy, you can say AI is a science of engineering of making intelligent machines. So it was a functionality which you can provide to a machine, where the machine can think out of themselves and take decisions. But AI has been recently more focused on the traits like natural language processing, decision making, games, speech recognition. All these things are also part of AI. And right now, the AI is more oriented towards machine learning, because currently we have a gamut of data which is there in the internet, and through that data the machine can individually decide what is the best approach they can take out of a problem. So the problem solving criteria right now are mainly focused on the researches around machine learning, but there are a few other use cases as well where AI can be used beyond the machine learning things. Now, what is a bot? So, bot is a remote control software program which interacts with a human being. So, you can say a bot is something like a software program which is hosted somewhere in internet, and when you want to talk with that bot, it will interact with you in a humanly manner. For instance, if you are ordering a pizza through a bot, you might be doing the same thing if there is someone sitting in the Pizza Hut or some pizza store. If someone is sitting in the counter, and if the interaction, how you will proceed with for a counter boy, it's similar with a bot. So bots are there in the internet. So most of the browsers, for instance, most of the pizza taking browsers or service-oriented browsers will have a small chat box inside the web UI, where people can order their pizza without actually interacting with the human being. So bots are actually replacing the service persons in general, where a software can act or behave like a human being and can respond to queries of the customers. Some of the examples of bots are, for instance, Siri, Cortana, Smart Child, of AOL and Messenger, or anything which is there in the market. I was talking about the IoT use cases of bots as I spoke to one of the attendees, where the bot can actually interact with an IoT device, where you as a user can instruct anything to the bot using a normal natural language. So now let's get into how traditional bots are built. So if you think of a traditional bot are actually you can think of a software program where you are writing something to a software and the software is responding. So the first thing that you have to understand is there will be a lot of language parsers, because as a non-technical person or a functional person, you might ask a software program in a similar way which you might ask to a human being. So if you are speaking in English, then identification of proper grammar and meaning of an utterance is the most important. Next, the traditional bots will have to actually bear all the complexities of the NLP or natural language processing, where you have to decode the sentences which is spoken by a customer, and you have to identify what is his intent on that utterance, and then you can respond accordingly. Traditional bots are in general fixed and in general respond to a specific type of questions, because as creating a bot is much more complex than this, you will be finding lot of bots which are in amateur stage rather than in quite an advanced stage. There is strong dependency on the database, because as a bot, you want your bot to be smart enough to actually handle all types of questions, but storing the data in memory would be very tough. So a lot of bots will actually store the data in database, and there is strong dependencies. Regular expressions, a lot of complex code, domain knowledge and personality development is one of the key areas of a bot. So if your bot is not having a good personality, people might not like the bot. There should be a separate set of APIs to interact with the bot, and bots are quite expensive during that days. Now, why bot framework? Because bots are common nowadays, because people don't like to actually interact with the UI. Rather, they would want to speak, or they would want to type in a chat box as normally as a user might do in a normal, in a real human being, with real human being. Sorry. Because of that requirement, a lot of big giants who are investing hugely on this kind of services are coming up with these kind of services where you can actually push some questions in natural language, and they can process it and identify what is the intent behind that question. Why they are putting it as a service? Because that is very easy for them to do, because as a software giant like Microsoft, Facebook, IBM, they are actually researching hugely on data. So there are a lot of machine learning algorithms behind these services, which actually continuously identifies your data and continuously making the change so that the services that they provide can accurately determine the proper intent of the user. Some of the examples you can say: IBM Watson, Facebook with AI, with.ai, Microsoft Luis. So I'll mainly focus on the Microsoft stack, because I am used to it. But other than that, if you are using IBM Watson or with AI or any other service, most probably they will provide you some REST API endpoint where you can pass in your data, and it will provide you some JSON response. So you can pass that JSON response and you can find the intent. In case of Microsoft, you will be getting a full-fledged API stack which you can download and use it in your application. If you are not aware of Microsoft Bot Framework, you can go to botframework.com, which will provide you all the links which you can download and install it in your machine, and you can create bots on your own. So what are the main features of Bot Framework? It is very easy and easy to use and easy to learn, because as most of us are oriented towards a high-level language like C# or Java, bots built on top of these languages will have more powerful capabilities and very easy to learn, because the SDK is very straightforward, and you don't have to actually understand all the JSON syntaxes. You will be getting a set of classes which you can use to interact with the bot. There is very comprehensive documentation. So if you go to botframework.com, you will find a lot of documents which explains each and every feature of the bot. Years of experience on Luis, because Microsoft has something like Codana for a considerable amount of time, and they are using bot for a long time. There are multiple support of REST, .NET, Node.js, etc. So if you're a JS developer, you can also use Node.js to interact with Luis. And it is constantly evolving. There are connector services. So if you are building one bot, you can host it in a web server, and that can connect to multiple channels. So let's talk about the architecture. So let's say this is your bot, and you're hosting it in your own environment. So the bot will interact with the cognitive services, that is Luis, which is the NLP service, which processes the natural languages and gives you the intent and entities. Bot will interact with other third-party APIs because as a bot developer, you might want to actually get more insight about the people or your business. Let's say someone asks about the status of a pizza delivery. So you can directly communicate with the database and get the data and return back to the user that pizza delivery is about to begin or something like that. Next is there is bot connectors. So there are a lot of built-in connectors available with the bots which you can make use of. For instance, the Skype, Slack, Facebook, web chat, all these things, user can connect to any of the channels to interact with your bot. So what you have to do, you have to actually connect your bot, first publish your bot and then connect to the specific connectors that you want to expose on. Now coming to the insights, bots are based on HTTP standards. So most of the bots, if you don't know, those are having some HTTP endpoints where you can hit some questions and so it's kind of API where you hit some question and it will return you some result. So many conversation. So if you open a conversation, each conversation in your bot will have a conversation ID, and while you are interacting with the bot, you will be using the same conversation ID which is created at first. You can have bot authentication. So if you are building a bot and you want your bot to be authenticated so that no other channel can use other than your own configured channel, you can actually create your own custom authentication module inside your bot application. And conversations are generally based on polling techniques. So why bot exists? Because conversations are gradually becoming an integral part of the digital life. As a user, you might want to interact more with Cortana rather than going through the settings panel of your phone or laptop. Your bot is easy to develop and it gives the user best user UX or user experience for your application, and it's a need for modern world. So now let us create one simple bot using bot framework. So to create a bot, you have to first go to, as I told you, that you have to first just a minute. So you have to first go to botframework.com. Okay, so I have just hidden the taskbar. Okay, so you have to first go to the botframework.com. So here, when you go to botframework.com, you will be asked to log in. If you don't want to log in, you can actually browse through the blog or documentation site. So if you click on the documentation site, you can see there are a lot of documents on how to build a bot or how it works, how to design a bot, developing bot, how to create an intelligent bot, all these things you'll find. Now, when you log in, you will be having a separate section called My Bots. So here you can actually create a bot on your own. So if I create a bot, you will be asked to register an existing bot or create an SDK hosted bot in Microsoft SDK. So I'll just register. So it will ask me the name of the bots. Remember, the name of the bot is very important part, because if you are having a service, let's say you are selling Domino's pizza. So Domino's would be the base display name. So when you choose the display name, you have to choose the proper display name so that people can easily find or discover your bot. And you can describe your handle some configuration. And then there is a section called Microsoft App ID. Now, as you know that bot requires to communicate with your user account, so you can create a bot Microsoft account ID and secret key, which will be used to create your bot, and you can paste. If you are using some analytics, you can actually add the instrumentation key or other keys, so you can learn more to have to integrate your bot with application insight. Application insight is a separate part, which is an application where you can have all the analytics in place. So when your bot is used, this bot will send periodic information to the application insight, and application insight will give you an idea how your bot is performing. So I'm not adding a bot. I have an existing bot called AppsiConnect, which is AppsiConnect is our product which is published, and you can see these are all channels. So if I edit a channel, so each channel will have a separate set of configurations. So direct line is used for directly putting your bot in a website or a web application where you can directly call the bot using your REST APIs, and you can fetch the data. There is Facebook Messenger, so you can have all these configurations. So for Facebook Messenger, you have to create a Facebook app in your Facebook profile, and you will find these Facebook app ID and app token. So if you want to create that, you can actually there is a link where you can click, and it will guide you on how to get all these details. There is Microsoft Teams, there is Skype as well. So in Skype you can add, in Skype you can actually add your bot as well. So there are a lot of features in Skype. You can enable each of them individually. For instance, if you want your bot to have a can interact in groups, you can actually enable it. If you want your bot can call and use IVR audio call section, you can actually use this section, and you can publish. There is messaging section as well. So there are a lot of configurations that you can do from here. Other than Skype, there is Slack, there is other being Botana. So you can integrate your bot with Botana as well. There are other services which you can add on. Twilio is a service where the bot will respond as an SMS. There is Telegram services as well. And as I told you, when you create the bot with, if you add it to the analytics service or application insight, you will find all the analytics listed here. And there are settings, and you can test the bot as well. So if you test, it will give you some special UI where you can type in and test your bot. So let me show you how a bot interaction looks like. So let's say I have interacted with the bot for a long time. So let's say I say hi. It says hello, welcome to AppsiConnect, and all these things. It asks me my name, and it greeted me and asked me my email ID. And after it got the email ID, it tries to find the email ID on the customer database. So if that email ID exists in the customer database, it will respond to me differently. But if it is not, then it will respond to me in separate way. So in this case, it cannot identify me. So it actually goes on and puts the discussion in a separate mode. So I can ask him any question, and it actually goes to the database to find these answers. In a separate section, I have actually asked a lot of questions, like simple questions, what's up? So it will give me something like that. Who are you? It will give me an answer like this. There are a lot of questions that it cannot answer as well. So you can see there that what do you know about FC Connect? So it finds that answer because the intent is actually FC Connect. So in similar way, there is a question asked, what is a touch point? So its intent is touch point. So it finds the proper answer like this. Now I'll show you how actually when I say that I am a user of FC Connect, it asks me to authenticate. So if I properly authenticate, it will put me on a different mode of communication. So it says me that if my subscription is going to expire at that date, or it's already expired, like that. So now let's see how you can write a bot. So I'll just open Visual Studio. So as I've told you that before going to Visual Studio, you have to actually install all the bits from the bot framework section. So you have to just go to botframework.com and follow the instructions how to create a bot. You can download and you can install the bot templates in your application, and you will find this bot template. So I'm just showing you how to create a bot. So I'll fire up my Visual Studio and I'll create a new project. And in my C# section, I'll find a new icon which says it's a bot application. So I can create my IoT bot, and when I create that, it will give me some classes which are pre-built. So from the template, you will find a few classes created automatically, where you can which you can edit and change according to your need. So it will create. Okay, so the bot is created. So you can see. So if you are aware of MVC of ASP.NET, so you might already know that this structure. So if I go to my controller, so this is an API controller. You can say it's an web API controller. In similar way, it is written, but there is a bot authentication in place. Rather than a normal authentication, there is a bot authentication. So there is an API called post, which receives an activity. So activity is something where if you interact with the bot with some question, it will automatically create an activity. So if I just see what are the types of activities, so there is a section called action. There is an attachment. So there is a list of attachment. There is a channel ID. There is channel data. There is conversation. You can identify from. So all these things will be created automatically when a bot is called for. So when your bot, you send a message to your bot, you have to actually send a request in similar way, like this, like an activity. Now here, when I received an activity, I'll first check whether the activity that is sent to me is of type message or not. If it is type of message, then a human has interacted me with a string. Now this line which says connector client, which creates a connector So activity will receive a service URL, and you have to create an object of connector client. Connector client is actually keeping track of your actual connector. So you can have one app in your website, and that can interact, that can be used by different connectors like Skype, Slack, etc. So each of these connectors will have separate URL, and that URL can actually connect to a separate section where all the data resides. So the first object that you need to create is the connector client. Now, as you see, this is actually a simple bot which actually receives the message and returns the length of the characters. So if I just run it, so before I run, I'll have to just change this URL port because I have already used up all these ports. So I'll make it 80, and now I run it. So when you run it, it will open up the default page where you can design this page anywhere, whichever suits you. So the page is this one, and it gives just an overview of your bot, your terms of use, your service, and all these things. So I have kept the default message. So feel free to actually change this file to get a proper UI. Now, I have just hosted my bot in my local host, so I change it to 80 and I connect. Now the bot is connected to my local application. So if I say hi, it will send me send hi, which was 2 characters. So it actually executes this post method and gave me the reply. So if I put a breakpoint here, so I can clearly identify what activity it receives. So if you see, it actually creates a message ID, and there is a conversation ID as well. This is the conversation ID. So when we start a conversation, let's say I am user 1, and when I start a conversation, it will have a unique identification number which is associated with a particular conversation. Now, for each message, there will be a separate ID for message level objects. So you can log each of these messages and identify when and who actually created this conversation and what kind of messages it got. So the service URL is for me is the local host, and it is, if you notice, it is hosted in a separate URL, separate port, because this is the port where my emulator is hosted on. So this is the port where my bot application is hosted on, and the emulator is hosted on a different IP, different port address, which is 50665. Now let's see if I don't receive a message type of activity. So in that case, there are some other activities as well. For instance, conversation update. Let's say when I add a new person to my conversation, what kind of things you want to do? In that case, I can actually reply him that welcome this guy, welcome to this conversation. Some welcome message you can put in. When someone is typing, you must reply. If you want to do something, you can have this section as well. When someone removes him from your bot, you will have a separate section where you can ask the real person why you are removing, or thank you for using the bot, etc. So now let's move on. I have just created a simple bot and showed you how it works. Now let's move to our next section. So basically, as I've shown you, the bot is actually a web service where the web service interacts with your logic using your SDK, bot builder SDK, and this logic can actually interact with the Lewis. Lewis is the AI engine, which is for natural language processing, language understanding intelligence service, which Microsoft have built in. And you can actually interact, you can actually redirect the messages to Lewis to find or decode the message and find the intent, and based on that intent you can actually program something over it. Now, as I told you, your bot is connecting to a bot connector. Bot connector is your client connector, which we have created an object of, and each of the connector where the bot is invoked, it actually keeps track of the state, the telemetry, all the things that are related to that particular conversation, and each of the conversation will have a separate conversation ID to interact with. This is a typical message type. So you can see the type of the message, ID, conversation ID, language, the text, some attachment if there is any. There is a from section where you can identify the user, and there is client data and bot data. So whenever you are actually interacting with the bot, you might want to store some state. Now moving on to actually, I'll demonstrate one of the coolest bot I've ever seen. So I'll just demonstrate this to identify what you can actually develop. So let's go to my bot. So let's say hi to this bot. So it says, welcome to Contours of Flowers. So it asks me what kind of flower you want. Welcome to, so there is a welcome message and there are two buttons. So these are something where you are invoking the user in a guided kind of interaction. So you can either choose order flowers or talk to someone. So let's order flowers. So it says, please enter the delivery address. Include apartment hash if needed. So I'll say I'll put up an address. So it says I found these results. So it found me on the map. So it shows me a map with a pointer on the particular location where the address is. So I found this result, type or say the number to choose the address. So let's say I say yes. Okay, so Kolkata, West Bengal, India, please provide the street number. So yes. So it asks me whether I want to store it as a favorite. I'll say no. Now it says, please select a category from the range of flowers. So I can choose one of them. So let's say I choose 5. So it says the value of it is $40, 40.99. So let's select it. Now it says when you want to deliver, want it to deliver. So I can say today. So great choice. So it asks me my name, Abhishek, and it asks me my last name. Okay, now my phone number. Any note? Welcome to IoT DevFest. Mail ID. Oh, I did something wrong. So I'll just put up. Will ask me again my phone number. Would you like to save this info? No. So billing address again. Okay, fine. Okay, so you got the flavor what I'm talking about, right? So would you like to save this address? No. So you can you can create this kind of structure, and you can the final price is this, and you can actually click on a button, and it will open up a URL. It is hosted in my local host, but you can have any URL which will create the checkout process. So rather than going to a shop, you might want to actually get the flavor of this kind of UI where the user, the program actually interacts with the user to get some checkouts. Now let's see how you can build such kind of UI. So to actually create some kind of dialogues, you might want to use an API called dialogues. So this is a common dialog where if you write a dialog like this, so what it does, it will try to identify the first section. So if it identifies that you can see this is the regex expression where I try to find the reset keyword. So if there is any reset on the text that user sent me, then I'll confirm, and then I'll do a reset of the count. So it's a simple way of keeping a count on what user said. So I have just modified that the original code to do a to count the number of text which user sends me, and it keeps on count until and unless the user says reset. So when user says reset, it will prompt whether you are you sure you want to reset the count, then it will reset my count. Similarly, if I want to have a chain operation, I can actually create a chain as well. So there is a switch case. So it can have one reset, and it can have a hill, or otherwise it will keep on counting. So all these code I'll share later on with all of you. So if there is an attachment, you can actually create a dialog over an attachment. So when a message received, so you can identify whether it's a make attachment, and you can have a card. Card is a separate section where it's similar to this, where you have two buttons, and one will allow you to add an attachment. I think I'm sort of time now. So let's quickly wrap up this. So there is another one simple section where you can have a calling bot as well. So I have just created an IVR section. So if you can hear the voice of the bot, so I can. If you are a new client, press 1. For technical support, press 2. Information about our recent payment updates, press 3. To hear more about the company, press 4. So you can see this is an idea kind of bot where the I. So you can have the bot to be a calling bot as well, where you can call the bot and have an idea kind of response, where one can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the bot can do according to the instructions. And you can also embed the speech recognition, and you can actually interact through human language as well. So I have put up some references which you can use to get more depth over how to build a bot. So there is some GitHub repository where you will find a lot of samples, and there is a discussion area where you can discuss if you find any problem. And there are a full set of documentation which you can use to create your next awesome bot. So if you have any question, you can ask me. Yes, the videos will be available. So as I've told you, there are a lot of areas where you can create a bot for yourself. It can be a bot where you want to service your customer. It can be a bot which gets instruction for your IoT device and you through a human language. So if you are building an IoT device or IoT kind of solution, you can have a bot over it, and you can open all these channels, and users can interact with the IoT device through the bot. There are a lot of other scenarios as well. So you can actually add a machine learning algorithm over a bot as well. So if you want your bot to take decision according to the user's interaction, you can actually add a decision engine, and your yes, bot builder does support Node.js. So as I've told you, if you go to the section of the documentation, you will find that there are two types of bot. One is, so if I go to the develop, so if I go to this, there is two kinds of bots. One is in C#, another is in Node.js, and another is in with REST. So with REST, you can actually use any kind of languages. It is an HTTP standard where you can interact with the bot using REST APIs. So you can create a bot using REST or Node.js or C#. It depends on what you want to do. How datasets are integrated. So as I've told you that this is actually an application. So if I open my actual bot over Abhishek Connect, which I have just shown you, so you can see I have created a dialog. So I'll just open up that dialog. So here my Abhishek Connect bot keeps on state, keeps the state on, and depending on the state, so I'll just show you that the state I've been saving here. And based on my application, I can actually, so I'll just go to my Louis dialog, and I'll show you that this is actually calling a database using entity framework. So this is my data model where I am sending the email and getting the response as data. So there is no such data set as such, but if you are willing to have a data set kind of thing where you want a decision engine to be hosted with a proper set of data set, you can actually use the machine learning portal which is provided in Azure, or you can also use some other portals like TensorFlow or other machine learning services where you can put up some data and you can actually expose those services as an API, and you can call those APIs from your bot and get the result. So if you need an API, need an example for a person, you can connect to me and I can give you a separate sample on how to actually interact with the dataset. Yeah, you can connect me through my email address. So it's contact@abhishek.com. So if you want to connect me, you can directly drop me a mail and I'll respond to you with proper examples. Otherwise, I'll also put up all these samples in with these slides if it is possible. Then I'll put up all these samples that are created from here with this video. Okay, so if you are a Java developer, you can. So if you are a Java developer, you can actually make use of REST APIs to interact with Java. Or if you want to develop your bot not in REST, purely in Java, then you can actually use some other SDKs as well, because Facebook with AI is also REST based, but they have Java SDK support. So you can make use of that. Otherwise, you can go directly to the bot framework and you can make use of the REST and direct line APIs to interact with your Java program. Thank you all.